Welcome. Several people have thrown their hats into the ring on the Netflix Resident Evil. So, what do I think? What do I feel? How do I feel? Somebody who's been passionate about the Resident Evil series since 2012. I know. Really in the late. My first game was Resident Evil 5, technically, but the game I first got into was 6. I played 5 a little bit. As I've stated many times, dropped it because I did not find it entertaining when I was playing by myself. I didn't really give it enough time anyway. I only played like an hour or two, and then I just put it down. But then 6 came out, my friend was hyping it up, got it, fell in love, Bona, I've been playing it ever since. So the Netflix Resident Evil show. Is it as bad as everybody is saying it is? That's what I want to go over. Because is the Resident Evil show a good adaptation of Resident Evil? No, it's not. Not the slightest bit. And what kind of made me think about this was I tried this before and I did the video, but it didn't come out very well. And the reason why it didn't come out very well is because of the audio quality, which is why I see this microphone. I just bought this microphone, and hopefully now my audio will not dip in and out like it did that day. And I've noticed it in the past, but never to a degree that it bothered me, or that it seemed like it was hindering what I was trying to get across. But that video was alone for way too long. It was like 50 minutes of me just ranting about this show and just reiterating some thoughts that I had. The audio took a big dip in that video for whatever reason. But yeah, I saw Avalanche reviews video on this Netflix show, and he was basically saying, yeah, the show is as bad as everybody's saying it is, or it is as bad as everybody was fearing it was going to be. But he wasn't like without his praises. He did praise the actor who played Albert Wesker. He praised some of the visuals, some of the Resident Evil fans. That's not what we come here for. We don't come here for a struggling Albert Wesker dad with 2 daughters struggling to live their life with higher up Umbrella employee Albert Wesker while they deal with their teen drama. That's not why we're here. And even I feel in the modern day, while it gives you deep, you delved into the lore, you went back and played the old games. You loved it. You loved the stories. You loved the universe. You loved the characters. For the most part. I mean, there's even some characters I don't really like. Like, I still don't care for Chris Redfield. I never have, and I never will. Others, I don't. Whatever. Which the show tries to do. It tries to make things as canon as possible. I mean, up until 2009, I guess you could say. They don't really talk about anything after that. Like Resident Evil 6, Revelations 2, 7, and 8. They pretty much only reference anything from 5 and back. There is no mention of anything in the modern Resident Evil storyline going on. Not that 6 and Revelations were modern by any means. Those games took place in 2012 and 2013. So, yeah. But characters make or break it. Like, if you can look past the egregious abuse of twisting the canon to the story you want while making it work in the Resident Evil universe, then the next thing you have to look at is it Resident Evil? Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about that. They keep it within the virus, whether it's the T or whatever, the virus, the bioweapons, all that kind of stuff. That's what makes up the monsters and the antagonists of the Resident Evil series. Viruses that create zombies and monsters, whether they're parasitic or just zombies, or whether they mutate themselves, like both Weskers, like Simmons, like Evelyn, Miranda. What is it, Sadler? Gavin Ford? Yes, Gavin Ford. It's a running theme. You got Birkin. Yeah, there's really only two mainline entries where the main antagonist of the game doesn't mutate. That's Wesker in the first game. Doesn't mutate till the fifth one. Just sticks the tyrant after you, and that's the Russian guy from 3. Doesn't mutate. He just sends Nemesis after you. Yeah, there's the tyrant and the Nemesis. Bioweapons. Mr. X and 2, you know? So yeah, inherently, the enemies of this game and that kind of lore-based stuff and the monsters are all very Resident Evil. I mean, they got out of the West. And so, yeah, there's no doubt about the authenticity of the DNA of Resident Evil in this show. And it helps that they actually went back and kind of threw in lore bits. Like, there's a scene where you see Lisa Trevor, which is really well done. Like, the style of it, the makeup of it, the look of it, all well done. They show the actual Albert Wesker and his full black Neo-inspired outfit. They obviously mentioned Raccoon City. There's a new issue going on in Taiwan in the story. But now that you've looked past that, if you can, if you haven't, then you've probably already bounced out. That or you kept watching with your popcorn, making fun of every little analytical mistake, inconsistency that goes on. As a Resident Evil fan, you probably will not enjoy the modern day. Not the modern day. You probably won't enjoy the past, when Billy and Jade are 17, because it's very teen drama. If you can get into teen drama, you're gonna enjoy that stuff, and you will enjoy the present day. Probably more than modern day, where the action takes place. There's hardly any action that takes place in the past. Most of it's suspense and stuff like that. It's very wordly, sneaking, hardly any action, but there's a couple scenes. So the main issue in the present day, now that we're going to get into spoiler territories, is very early on, Jade and Billy go to Umbrella after Billy is invited and sees an animal being taken downstairs. So she wants to go save the animals, obviously, because she's the woke, vegan type person. Hence, color back. She's very. There's no way to get out of this. She very much is inspired by Billie Eilish. There's no way. Her name's Billie. It's spelled the same way. Her hair, her clothing style, it all screams Billie Eilish. The biggest, I don't know if Billy's vegan or not, but maybe that's another connecting factor. I don't know. But she seems very heavily inspired off of Billie Eilish. Or that's what they're going for. That's why they are trying to endear people to her, to get people to like her more, because they like her style, they like her Billy, whatever. She's a little more easygoing, a little more timid, a little more skittish, a little more reserved, preserving of her. She doesn't want to be looked at as a freak. And then Jade's very outspoken, very overprotective, but very boy crazy compared to Billy. She gets distracted by boys a lot, which then frustrates Billy, because Billy's fighting her for her attention. But then Billy gets bitten by a zombie dog, which is very well done. Looks a lot like the ones in the games, And so from then on out, though for the rest of the modern day, it is Billy trying to live with her symptoms that she's developing, but they are going at a very, 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 very slow rate. Slow rate, because of Albert Wesker. When he made them, he strengthened their DNA to a degree. So that's why the mutation or the effects of the virus is not going as fast. It's going at a very slow rate for her. So it's basically her fighting that and trying to cope with what is happening to her while trying to live out the best of her last days, not being seen as a freak. Thanks, Mama. Thank you. Exactly what I wanted you to do, good girl. Knock that off. Anyway, so it all culminates, with issues between and Billy and Jade, and Jade's kind of boyfriend, who also happens to be Evelyn's son. I know some people took umbrage with Evelyn having a wife and then having a kid. It's like, why is that an issue? It's never really even a focal point. They don't even throw it in your face. Like when Evelyn's wife first comes to the store worried about her, it's all about being worried about her. It's not literally, oh, she's got a wife. No, the wife's just worried about the wife. I'm wondering why she didn't contact her when she got into town, yada, yada, yada. Even when you're at the house with the son and the two moms, they don't make a big deal about him having two moms. It's about Evelyn being just a bitch of a woman, quite frankly. She's an evil person. She's a manipulative person. She's not a good person at all. So, yeah. Billy ends up biting her son, and everyone shoots him square in the face. I mean, at least she shows confliction on her face. She didn't want to do it, but she felt like she had no other option to do it. Even though Wesker offered to help her son if she just kind of forgot everything about Billy and Jade. Obviously, she shoots him in the face, so that's off the table. And I'd probably say my favorite scene and the entire pastime, the 2022 timeline, is when Billy gets called to the detention to the principal's office with the girl who was bullying her that got smacked in the head, then going to sue or whatever, dad, and then Wesker comes in, basically just owns her dad, blackmails him, and just goes full Wesker, full ruthless, full cutlass. Just the scene is perfect. I love that scene. It's probably my favorite scene. Other than that, it's Home Movies, I think is the episode. It's episode 5, when the girls are sneaking around the house, trying to get into the basement because they find out about the dead drop that he has an email sent to go to Billy if he ever passes. That whole scene that leads them down into his little chambers and everything. I like that scene a lot, but he needs their blood because Albert Wesker is not actually Albert Wesker. He is, but he isn't. He's a clone. He's one of 3 clones, actually. One dies. You see him die in the flashback. And the other one's incompetent. Very cool, very chill, very immature. And he gets put into prison this entire time. So he's in a cell this entire time. But Albert Wesker is a clone. He's not the real one. The real Albert Wesker obviously died in 2009 in a volcano when he got his head rocket launched off by Sheva and Chris. That still happens. So this Albert Wesker is a clone. And so because Albert Wesker needed them for research, when he cloned them, he gave them rapid aging. So he didn't have to do a toddlers for very long. He needed them now. So he needs Billy and Jade's blood to basically suppress his rapid aging. So if he doesn't take their blood, he's going to age rapidly and die quicker. So yeah, they're basically blood bags to him. Essentially, he needs them for his survival. And that becomes a confliction for Billy and Jade once they find out that he's only using our blood. He needs us because without our blood, he cannot live for much longer. So that becomes a contentious thing, And Then you got to the present day. The present day focuses solely on Jade. Now, I didn't mention this, but character-wise, I like Billy. I actually really enjoyed Billy's character throughout the present 2022 timeline, and I really liked Albert Wesker. I liked his acting. I liked the way his character did. His character was good. I liked clone Albert Wesker number 3 the most because he was the most entertaining and the most fun character of the 2022 timeline. I thought Evelyn was a good antagonist, and I guess the greatest umbrage was how they tried to make Albert Wesker more human. Then again, this is just a clone and not the Albert Wesker that was just, sociopathic, unempathetic douchebag. So there's that. I mean, there's no way to get around it. I mean, looking past that, it's not like they did what Welcome to Raccoon City did with the real Albert Wesker. But yeah, looking past that, I liked this character. Jade, however, I didn't like Jade. To be quite frank with you, I did not like Jade. There was nothing she did that endeared me to her. There was nothing she did that made me like her more or hate her more. I don't know. I did not like Jade a whole lot. The only time I really liked Jade was in the scene where they're sneaking around the house trying to get into the basement and finding the dead drop. That was about it. That's the only time I liked Jade. And so then you jump to the present day, 2036, whatever, and it focuses solely on Jade. No Billy in sight, just Jade. And I didn't like Jade already. I didn't like her in the 2022 timeline. So she's more likable in the present timeline. But because I didn't like her in the present day timeline, even though they're flipping back and forth, but because I don't like her in that timeline, I don't have the care for her in the modern timeline, even though her character isn't as bad or as unlikable. There's a moment when she finally goes back to the ship that she's living on with her husband and daughter, who isn't the daughter of her husband. It's a baby from another relationship that this guy is basically taking care of by himself. She's always off on an adventure doing some kind of research. She basically struggles to be a parent like Albert because she's a workaholic. There's a moment where she leaves her daughter's piano, show and tell, to go to work. How am I? You'd rather look at your results than support your child. When the results will still be there by the time you get there. After the recital. I don't know. That was one moment that really bothered me. I did not like that at all. So I mean, there were still moments in the present timeline where I didn't like her, and then they turned Billy into the bad guy. That I really didn't like because it's like they were trying to do the flip flop, where they're trying to make Jade more likable and Billy likable in the present 2022 timeline, and flip flop it to where you make Jade likable and Billy unlikable in the 2036 timeline. That I didn't like because I liked Billy a lot more. I was way more invested in her character, way more invested in her survival, her struggle, her issue. Whereas Jade I didn't care about. She was selfish for the most part and just had a bad attitude and just did not endear people to her, in my opinion. But that being said, if you don't like teen drama or you can't get into that, then you're not going to like the 2022 timeline anyway. Most fans who grew up with Resident Evil from the 90s or early 2000s are not going to like the teen drama aspect of the modern day or the 2022 timeline, which is like 80% of it. I'd say only 20% of it, maybe 30% is the whole Wesker Evelyn stuff. And the present timeline, the 2036 one, isn't much better in terms of character growth. But again, like, I'm not invested in Jade. Her husband's great. I like her husband. There really is no other characters aside from when you finally meet Billy in like the 5th episode, where you have the Umbrella guy who's chasing her from episode 1 to that episode, where they kill him off after they make you like him in a badass scene. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the effects in the show are fine. I don't understand why people are shitting on the effects. The effects are fine. There's nothing I think the effects are pretty fine. I mean, I can't gripe about the way the zombies look, the way the crocodile looked, the way the giant worm looked, the way the lickers looked, the way the Cerberus looked. That I can't complain about it because they looked fine. That liquor scene was badass, and why he's on the poster I don't know because he's only in one scene. Literally that scene where they're escaping from the back of the van or whatever and into the tunnels. That's the only time you see a liquor in this entire show. One episode, one scene. Why is he on the poster? Why? I don't like that. So, yeah, then you have the fat umbrella guy who's chasing her the entire time, who's kind of a jokester. At first, you kind of don't like him because he's smarmy, but then you kind of grow on him because they like team up. And then, right as they like make you like him, they kill him off because she wants to keep the head of the zombie that can control people with their sound waves. I guess at the end of the day, what I'm saying is if you are not that invested in Resident Evil, not that lore heavy, not that lore deep, not that deep diver, not that passionate fan that just so wants their Resident Evil movie, TV show to follow the video game, then you are not going to like this in any way, shape, or form. It's not even worth your time. If you like Resident Evil from a casual standpoint, you will probably enjoy the show. The characters are at most decent. There are some great ones. The acting isn't bad at all, the way the acting is done. It's more so the way the dialogue is written. The action in the 2036 timeline is pretty good. Like I said, the liquor scene. The scene in the tunnel that's in the episode after that, or in the same episode, one or two. It's pretty good. The action is like mostly good when it's there. But at the end of the day, there isn't a lot of action either. It's mostly just like verbal conflict, internal conflict, escaping conflict, being one step ahead of them. But I did see this one comment though. I don't want to go off on a tangent. I'm pretty much done with going over the show. The show is good as its own thing, but it's not good as a Resident Evil show. I don't think by any means. But I saw somebody say, because everybody's complaining about the show and like rating it so bad and petitioning to get off Netflix, like it's not that bad. It's not that bad at all. It's just you shouldn't put Resident Evil on it. Like this is literally just an Albert Wesker fan fiction given the budget. Or at least it started out that way and then turned into the Billy Jade fan fiction as well. The overall Wesker fan fiction. But somebody said, not everything has to be a direct adaptation of its source. It's like, you're right. Not everything has to be a direct adaptation of its source. But I personally believe your first attempt at it should be. And what I mean by that is if you're going to make a video game like this, make the show, the movie, based on the character. Like, make the character the main character of the series. Whether it's Claire, Leon, Chris, Ada, Jill, any of them. Don't change the fucking canon to fit your story. Like Uncharted's a perfect example. I liked Uncharted. I really liked Uncharted. It's my favorite video game to movie adaptation. Period. So far, it is my favorite video game to movie adaptation. Bar none. There is none that equal it. I think Like, it's really good. It sets up the first game. It's funny. The characters are like the video game. May have given Nate a bubblegum and alcohol fixation that he doesn't have in the games. And so like a cat. But that's another thing entirely. But otherwise, they're pretty much accurate to the video game source. And don't change the canon too drastically. Because I don't know if they ever explained how Nate and Chloe met in the games. I don't remember. So by the time you meet Chloe in the video games, they already know each other, so you can only assume that they know each other through the lore. Whereas Resident Evil's never even attempted it, aside from Welcome to Raccoon City, and Welcome to Raccoon City botched so much it wasn't even funny. Like, I will say this. I would rather watch Welcome to Raccoon City than Netflix's Resident Evil. Why? Because it's shorter, and I like the set designs and the characters better. Like, I think I liked Robbie Amell's character. I liked Asia, and I don't remember her name, but it's like Claire. She replaced Claire, and she's also Teresa from The Maze Runner. I liked her portrayal of Claire. A little more cold-hearted, less warm than Claire, because Claire's like a natural mother figure, almost like a natural caregiver. In the original, in this one, she's a little more cold, theoristically crazy. And they made Leon a little more inept, incompetent, which I didn't like at all. Yeah, he's a rookie, but like, bro, he wasn't even this incompetent in the video game. Like, why are you trying to make him a joke? Like, you literally said you want Resident Evil 4 to be your next movie in this series. How are you gonna do that when you made him look like a joke in the first one? You're gonna tag Claire along with him and still make him look inept? Hell no. And then what they did to Wesker, like the actors all look great for their roles. But then they made Wesker like extremely likable. And I liked him, and that's what I hate about it. I liked Wesker and Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. I thought his character was really well done. But it was also extremely different from the video game where he's deep in Umbrella. But in that one, he's only just now joining Umbrella. Like, no, the mansion incident was his sting. That was his goal. That was him setting it up. Not Umbrella. Yeah, Umbrella, but through him. He used his own team as test subjects, combat test subjects for the T-Virus. They made Ada look a little more evil than she is. It's like they flip-flopped Wesker and Ada. It's like, I don't know. One, you already messed up by combining 1 and 2 into one game, like they happened on the same night, one movie, like they happened in the same night. 3 and 2 happened in the same night. If you're going to combine 2 video games into one movie and have them happen simultaneously, then you do 3 and 2. The 2 games that happen at the same time. Well, kind of. It's like 3, Joe gets knocked out, all of 2, then Joe wakes up. Otherwise, it's the same day. It's the same 24 hours. So why did you stretch the canon to put one? Like, literally, you should have just done 1 as its own movie, and then done 2 and 3 in its next one, and then you could have had your third movie be Resident Evil 4. It's not that hard to plan out. It really isn't. And you wouldn't have had to cut my boy Barry Burton, one of the best Resident Evil side characters in the entire franchise. Come on. You had one job. But that being said, with all my gripes about it, I still enjoy it as a film. That bothers me, but its set design is extremely amazing. That being said, I would still watch this over this, because kind of mostly because of the set design. I really like the set design. But that being said, I would rather watch the Netflix show over Paul W.S. Anderson's movies. All of them. don't care if it's Resident Evil, Apocalypse, Extinction, Afterlife, Retribution, or the final chapter. Which Apocalypse is my favorite movie of the six, by the way. And I know that's a hot take. A lot of people think the first one's the best. Everything after that is pretty trash. They killed Albert Wesker with the fucking door, man. What are you doing? That being said, I would still recommend any of the animated movies. Degeneration, great. Damnation, my favorite, personally, of the four. Vendetta, pretty solid. I think my least favorite of the four. And then Infinite Darkness, which they released as a Netflix series on Netflix, but it's just a glorified TV show. Like, the runtime is literally 3 or 2 minutes longer than the longest animated film. They literally just took an animated film and chopped it up into 4 little bits. You should have just released it as a movie. I'm just going to be honest with you. Which is what they did in the Blu-ray release. Blu-ray DVD release, whatever. So, to recap, is Resident Evil the Netflix series as bad as everybody says it is? The answer is yes and no. Is the special effects as bad as people say it is? No. Is the acting as bad as people say it is? No. Is the dialogue as bad as everybody says it is? It's probably its weakest point, to be honest, is the dialogue. Especially for the younger Jade and Billy. Overall, like I said, if you're deep into Resident Evil, don't bother. It's not for you. If you like the Paul W.S. Anderson films, you'll enjoy this. No problem. If you liked Welcome to Raccoon City, you'll still probably enjoy this. No problem. If you loved the video game series, don't. You won't like it. You'll hate it. You might find aspects you enjoy, but you'll probably hate it. Just watch the animated films in general. They're so much better. That's all I have to say before I ramble on any longer. If you have a great day, remember you can be the best you can possibly be. If you like the video, give it a like, comment, that'd be super special, awesome. Subscribe if you haven't, that really help me out. I hope this microphone worked. Ta-ta. For now.